Stage 4, the debut. Chapter 13, the debut. The moment when you feel like giving up is right before your breakthrough. Victoria Arlen. The debut is the fourth phase of development that a woman will walk through on her way to the rise. This is a season of breakthrough that is marked by an inauguration. This is a season of being unveiled and revealed as the most authentic version of who you were created to be. For the woman who has entered this stage, your days of wandering and wondering are over. Just like the children of Israel, you are ready to cross over into your promised land. You don't have to walk in circles from this day going forward. Just like Joseph, the patriarch of old, you are now ready to be promoted from the pit to the palace. Your induction into your royal position is secure. The word debut means a person's first appearance in a particular role or capacity. It is a grand entrance or introduction to the world. After the caterpillar is disintegrated and the cells have restructured themselves into a butterfly, she makes her grand entrance into the world as she breaks out of the cocoon, spreads her wings to fly. Once Esther was whisked away from her hometown and added to the harem of women in the king's court, she went through a process of preparation for royalty. She made her grand entrance as the newly elected queen of the kingdom. Once you have surrendered to the cocoon, endured the breakdown of the woman that you were, so that you could be molded into the woman you were destined to be, the next step is to make your grand entrance by showing up in the world in the most authentic way. At this point, you have worked hard to up-level your mindset, face your fears and insecurities, and go through the full process of development. Because you have learned to forgive yourself, love yourself, and trust yourself in these previous phases, you are now prepared to flow in the unconventional wisdom that is available to you. You are no longer worried about pleasing other people, and you can make progressive decisions, even if they go against the grain. You're not looking to be understood or to be validated by the opinions of others in this stage. All these characteristics have prepared you for your queenly anointing. Your independent mindset from the previous seasons prepared you for this moment in time. You are secure in who you are, why you're here, and what you're here to do so that you're able to make decisions with ease. Your newly developed interdependent mindset has prepared you for the partnerships that you will collaborate with in the rise. Now, instead of waiting on a miracle, you know how to be a miracle for someone else. The debut is marked by practice. This is your season of rehearsing your new role as the real you, unmasked. The butterfly has never flown before. She has to practice using her wings. Esther had never been queen before. She was not born into royalty. She had to practice holding her head up high so that her crown did not fall off. You have not been accustomed to being visible and letting your voice be heard. This is your season of practicing your authenticity and being activated into a life of greater impact. Just shine. Your strategic action in this stage of development is simply to shine. To shine is to reveal your brilliance from within. It is that thing when people say, you're just glowing, or she just lights up the room. Just like the old song that I used to sing in Sunday school, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. I used to sing this at the top of my lungs with such determination that I would never hide my light. Yet somewhere along the way, my light grew dim. I compared myself to others, diminished my light, and then let others trample on my light. But once you step into the debut, you have a new understanding that you are responsible for keeping your own light burning bright, and it is your job to protect it with valor. Marianne Williams said it so well. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in every one of us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fears, our presence automatically liberates others. Shining takes a little practice. After being small and insignificant as a caterpillar and then hiding out in the cocoon, shining doesn't always come naturally. That's why it's imperative not to skip over the debut. You'll not be as effective in the rise unless you have honed your shining skills in the debut. What does it mean to shine? When you awaken to your authenticity, come into alignment with your divine assignment, and you're activated for the impact that you were put on the earth to make, you will reveal an inner luster. Locating this sweet spot, this intersection of your divine imprint and your divine influence reveals your divine impact. That is your call. Matthew 5:16 says, and in the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. One of my clients, who we'll call Bella, had a dilemma. She had gone through the process of discovering her mission, vision, and purpose, and had identified that she was in the debut. She was ready to let her light shine. She was done hiding and diminishing the gifts that God had placed inside of her to use. She had an opportunity to share her vision with a friend and confidant. This trusted comrade who had supported her all through her journey questioned Bella and discouraged her from shining so brightly. She encouraged her to dim her light just a little bit so that she didn't make other people uncomfortable or rock the boat. Bella's friend went as far as to shake her head in displeasure. Bella was distraught over the lack of support that she had received and considered shrinking back. I shared with Bella Matthew 5:16 and the quote by Marianne Williamson. We talked about the options and possibilities that were available to her. There was always the option of devaluing herself based on her friends' opinions of how bright she should shine. But once you've gone through the full process of development, why would you travel at the pace of a caterpillar when you know you have wings? Bella had to dig deep, but learning to put the oxygen mask on herself in the previous season prepared her to breathe and take a stand for her own dreams and desires in the debut. Thankfully, Bella chose to honor this new season of her life, and she chose to keep shining bright. Bella had now stepped into the rise, and God is using her to impact women's lives like never before. She was able to practice shining in the debut so that by the time she got to the rise, it was as natural to her as breathing. Another one of my clients who went through my 12-week coaching program discovered her passion and potential. She reawakened to the dreams and desires that God had placed in her since she was a young girl. She always had had the desire for fitness and a healthy lifestyle. As an average-sized woman, she began working out and weight training, sculpting her body into a work of art. She had gotten her certifications for coaching and started entering competitions. This new journey required that she put herself on display as a competitive bodybuilder. I remember many conversations about how uncomfortable she was shining. She had spent most of her life fading into the shadows, second guessing her value and worth. All of a sudden, she was making her grand entrance, putting herself out there for everyone to see. I'm thankful that she chose to come out of obscurity and make herself visible. It had blessed me beyond measure to watch her go from inconspicuous to obvious. She made her grand entrance during her debut. She practiced shining. She is now soaring to new heights with her meticulously carved biceps and buns of steel. You are a human being, not a human doing. The debut is a season of just being, whereas in the previous stages, a woman gained her significance from doing. A woman in the debut stage is learning to just be. It is not that a woman will not do anything in this stage. She is actively doing life. However, any doing that she does comes from who she is at her core instead of to prove who she is. This is an opportunity for her to rest in the fullness of whom she was created to be and act out of a deep level of authenticity as she practices showing up in the world fearlessly to make a bigger impact. Women often tell me that they're afraid to put themselves out there. Many times they report that they're scared to shine, to be visible, or to let their voice be heard. They're worried that if they stand up to be heard, they'll be judged. The fear of judgment keeps women small and hidden. Women have asked me, how do you find the courage to let your voice be heard? Answer is simple. When you have mined the diamonds of your past and take ownership of your story, your purpose becomes revealed. Your purpose leads to the blossoming of your message. When you know your message, you're just the messenger. The message becomes the focus, and you're able to take the back seat to the clarion call that you were created to herald from the mountaintops. In this season of the debut, it's in this season of the debut that your obligation to your message outweighs your commitment to worrying about how you're perceived. The debut stage of development is a transitory season of preparation for the rise. It is a dress rehearsal for your new role as the real you, unmasked, unfettered by fear, insecurity, and pain. The debut is the bridge between who you were and whom you were meant to be. It is the practice run of your best life. It's time to plan your coming out party, girlfriend. So let's get ready to celebrate. Chapter 14, The Breakout. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls the butterfly. Richard Bach. During the debut phase of a woman's journey toward her rise, her expedition mimics the breaking out of the cocoon process that a newly formed butterfly goes through. This season of emerging for the butterfly is called eclosion. Eclosion is when hormones are released throughout the chrysalis, causes the cocoon to become transparent so that the cocoon can begin to be open. As the butterfly breaks out of what once encumbered her, she's now been unveiled to the world in full fashion, where at one time she blended into her environment, she now displays her new colorful attire in full array. Your breaking out season reveals the beauty of whom you have become. There's no more camouflaging your gifts and talents. I touted the title of a fashionista at one time, but while I was in my cocoon, I lost all sense of personal style. Looking back at pictures, it's as if my defeated demeanor masked the artistic trendsetter that I had once portrayed. After breaking out of my cocoon, I had an opportunity to have a roommate for a little while. She just happened to be a personal stylist from Nordstrom, a high-end department store. She walked me through a process of discovering and rediscovering my own unique style. She went through my closet as if she were cleaning out the refrigerator. She updated my look with a hair and makeup makeover. The significance of her showing up in my life at that time was huge. I believe that she came into my life Prepare me for the debut, your emerging story. Just before the butterfly is ready to start kicking our way out of the cocoon becomes transparent. Eclosion is controlled by hormones. These hormones are released to soften the chrysalis and to trigger the nervous system um, and it begins the movements needed to complete the emergence process. At the time of your emerging, you will have an opportunity to become transparent about your journey, realizing that your journey, the story that once encumbered you, was the very instrument that became the container for your development. This season is marked by vulnerability and openness and defenselessness that displays itself as letting your guard down. You no longer feel the need to protect your heart or hide your journey. Your heart is now an open book ready to be read and enjoyed. Whereas in previous seasons, you may have felt embarrassment or shame about your story, you are now ready to embrace your story as a part of your authenticity. You realize that your story is your identity, and the way you tell your story shapes your character. Your story is foundational to how you show up in the world. Science has proven that telling your story affects your physical well being. It turns off your body's stress hormones like cortisol and epinephrine, and it turns on relaxation responses like oxytocin, dopamine, nitrous oxide, and other endorphins. It turns on self repair mechanisms and actually functions as preventative medicine. Telling your story relaxes your nerves and heals your mind of depression, anxiety, and anger, as well as releasing feelings of uh, connectedness. My, what big eyes you have. The emerging butterfly has traded in her two little beady eyes for 12,000 eyes. Yes, you read that correctly. Not just one type of eye, but two types of eyes, single and compound. One type of eye is for focus, and the other type of eye is similar to the human retina, with the addition of being able to see ultraviolet light. Your newly formed multifaceted eyes allow you to see yourself through the lens of possibility and focus on your vision. You no longer view your story through the eyes of a victim. Even if you were victimized, you are able to take responsibility for not remaining the victim. You can now embrace all parts of your past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, bring them together in such a way that brings healing to the world. I remember feeling such guilt and shame about my story. Growing up in church, I did not smoke, chew, or run with those who do, as the old saying goes. Preachers' kids are known for being the worst. They have a reputation for being the most rebellious ones of the bunch. But not me. I toed the line. I did not partake in the ways of the world. I remember hearing people giving their testimony about how terrible, what terrible sinners they were, and how God set them on a better path. I felt so left out that I did not have a radical testimony. I guess I thought I was missing out on something. Whew. Now, looking back, I wish I would have appreciated the fact that I had a boring testimony. My world got turned upside down, and out of the blue, I had a story. I had a testimony. Once I finally had a story, I felt tremendous guilt and shame about my story. I had helped so many people keep their marriages together. How did things go so awry that I could not even save my own? I had lived a quotations righteous life. I prayed and fasted. I did all the things that a good Christian was supposed to do, as if those things are insurance against all hell breaking loose. I had become adept at telling my sad tale. I had built my identity around my misery and to took liberties to share with anyone who would listen. But something happened in my cocoon. During my hidden time of development, I reframed the events of my previous life. I rewrote my story from a new perspective. I penned a new version of former happenings and scripted them in a way that I was the hero instead of the victim. I began to mine the diamonds of my past that I had only seen as lumps of coal. Once I started sharing this new version of my story, I began to witness something incredible. People found hope and courage in their own lives from hearing my story. During the debut stage of a woman's life, just like the butterfly, this is the season of being seen and heard. Owning the fullness of your experiences reveals the gifts that you've locked up inside of you up until now. Breaking out of the cocoon of your transformation means that you do not have to hide anymore. You are no longer encumbered by the container of your development. You can show up in the world and be visible without guilt or shame of your past. Your story is now the vehicle to impact others. It takes courage to stand in this new place and be visible, letting your voice be heard. Being hidden away where no one can see you might feel lonely, but it also feels safe. You can protect yourself from judgments of onlookers when you're in the cocoon. But once you break out, being visible takes some getting used to. Showing up in the world as more authentic, as a more authentic version of yourself takes practice. At one time, you were small and insignificant, but now, a fully formed butterfly, you're more noticeable and susceptible to a new set of outside stimuli. You got to kick your way out. Once the chrysalis has become transparent, there is only one way out of the cocoon. The legs come out first with forceful kicking. The butterfly pushes her way out, much like a woman pushes at the time of delivery. Just like a baby that goes through the birth canal, breaking out is no easy task, but the reward is worth the hard work. One final season of using intense exertion and force may be required in order for you to be unveiled. After the butterfly has kicked her way out of the cocoon, she crawls all the way out, exposing her abdomen and wings. Similarly, as you begin to be unveiled as the most authentic version of whom you were created to be, you may notice that you have opportunities to expose who you are at your core. Still upside down, the wings are visible, but folded and wrinkled as the new butterfly begins the process of expanding her newly formed aeronautical apparatuses. Expansion begins in an upside down process. Life may still feel topsy turvy, but it's all a part of the process. Your expansion begins while you still feel like everything is upside down. You may have everything you need to soar to new heights, but just like the butterfly, your wings are wrinkled and clumsy. Operating in your new gifts and operating high at a high functioning level will take some getting used to. You may have all the components to live at a higher level, but you still need experience. It's all part of the process. This newly refilled butterfly drops to the ground from exhaustion. She takes a moment to rest and regain her strength so that she can prepare for what's next. Once you've stepped into the debut of life through kicking and hard work, you may notice a bit of exhaustion. This is totally normal and expected after such a dedicated effort. Taking the time to rest and gear up for a new adventure that awaits you is part of the process. Flying propels you into places you've never been before, and it thrusts you into a new atmosphere. Self-care is essential so that you can flow from a place of abundance and prosperity. Through the movement of flapping wings, they begin to dry and get unwrinkled. All of the meconium, or the excretion that the butterfly was trapped inside of the cocoon with, begins to be pumped back through her body and into the veins of her wings. The feces gets redistributed throughout the butterfly's wings and hardens. Everything you've been through is what gives your wings the strength to fly. All the heartache you've suffered through, all your fears, anxieties, and insecurities, even the parts of your story that brought you much pain, gets incorporated back into the core of your being and becomes part of one of your greatest assets. All of the crap that you've been through now becomes incorporated into your core structure, and it's what supports you in flight. While the meconium is red, it looks like blood. It is merely dead cells left over from the metamorphosis. The death process that you've endured, the releasing of whom you've become in order to embrace who you were created to be, becomes the very thing that gives your wings the strength to soar. When the leftover meconium does not go back into the wing, whatever leftover meconium does not go back into the wings, is exited out of the butterfly in one swift and final thrust during her first flight. Anything that's no longer useful to you is released, and you are truly free from your past. The breaking out season is marked by risk, but staying safe no longer provides the comfort it once did. New partnerships are formed during the season of the debut. Where at one time you felt more at ease around caterpillars hidden in leaves and branches, now you are enjoying the freshness of the wind in your face. Not everyone from your previous season will celebrate your upleveling. Do not, but it does not rock you at your core like it used to. You are not looking for approval of others. You are not trying to get your validation from outside sources. You are getting comfortable being uncomfortable outside of your comfort zone. Your breakthrough is here. Chapter 15, The Crown. Crown will not complete you or make you happy. It is simply part of the uniform of an elite group of people who are just trying to make the world a better place. Michelle Field. Training for reigning. Not only is the debut your coming out party and season of breaking out of the cocoon, but it's also where you receive your queenly anointing and you practice moving about the palace. The debut is an opportunity to get the layout of the castle. This is your training for reigning. This is where you begin to own your crown. Your crown. Women have been so conditioned to think that they are not worthy of this headdress, but you cannot enter the rise until you acknowledge your crown. The crowned jewels. A crown is heavy laden with jewels, and you have to practice wearing it so that it is natural to walk back and forth without it falling off. Wearing the crown requires good balance and posture. This is a season of balancing who you are at your core with what you're here to do. It's a season of posturing your attitude in a way that balances humility and modesty with self-respect and self-worth. In this season of the debut, your new headdress ornately displays diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires, each one significant to this particular stage of your journey. Diamonds. They say diamonds are the girl's best friends. There are 4 C's that are examined when choosing a diamond that reminds me of a woman on the rise. The cut. Diamonds are cut by a master diamond cutter. Once the shape of a diamond is determined, facets or areas of surface are then cut. It is these facets that reflect light like a prism and produce the stone's fire and brilliance. As you are fashioned into whom you were created to be, your inner light will reflect brighter and reach further. The color. In a diamond, less color is better because color clouds the jewel and does not allow the light to refract through it purely. While an array of color makes our world beautiful as it relates to a woman who is ready to shine like a diamond, clarity requires the purity of reflection. Color, in this instance, represents an opaque hallucination that clouds your judgment and hinders your vision of whom you were created to be. Clarity. The clarity of a diamond is measured by a loupe, a small magnifying glass. When a flaw is detected in a diamond, it adds character to the stone and makes it unique. This helps to identify the stone. However, the flaw can affect the stone's durability. The type of flaw and the location of the flaw is more important than the flaw itself. This diamond woman understands that she must accept her flaws as part of who she is, and she can no longer walk in insecurity about her flaws. They are simply there to add character to her life and make her unique. If she chooses to work on her flaws, it is for the purpose of being more effective, not because she thinks she's not good enough the way she is. Carat weight. The carat weight of a diamond increases the value of a stone. As you stop playing small and allow yourself to dream bigger, you bring more value to the world. The more value you bring, the more significant you feel. The more significant you feel, the more fulfilled you feel. The more fulfilled you feel, the more joy you exude. Like a diamond, a woman in the debut how is beginning to know how to appreciate the shape, size, personality, and gifts that God has given her. She has begun to allow God to mold her and cut away things that hinder her. This is evident in the way she lives and cares unselfishly for others. Her passion for others produces a natural shine and brilliance to her life. Rubies. A ruby represents unbridled passion and love. It symbolizes fire and blood. The ruby is linked to clarity, confidence, and reclaiming one's personal power. The price of a ruby is determined by the depth of its color. Unlike the diamond, transparency is secondary in determining the quality of the stone. Inclusions are considered to be the stone's fingerprint rather than its flaws, unless it's at the center. Defects in the stone are actually a mark of individuality of a ruby. The debut is marked by a woman's ability to discover her passion and tenacity. She's been through the fire and has put in the blood, sweat, and tears into her life, yet is still dissatisfied. She is a woman of depth who has suffered great loss and expects many bumps and bruises along the way. She may have inclusions and defects from marred relationships, suffered past financial devastation, or other hardships in life, but it is not about to let those, she is not about to let those things stay at the center of her being, her heart. This woman is ready to put her past behind her and see those marks in the stone as her individuality. She is ready to regain confidence and reclaim her personal power so that she can bring her unbridled passion and love to the world. She is ready to pay the price and walk in her brilliance. Emeralds. The emerald encourages nourishing care, reflection, and growth. The emerald stone is linked to healing and balance within, specifically healing to the nervous system, digestive system, and respiratory system. It is said that it helps those suffering from depression, mental and emotional disorders. It is to be considered a stone of recovery, renewal, and regeneration. A woman in the debut is practicing self-care, self-love, and self-respect. She has released negative mindsets about her own body image and she loves the skin she's in. She has a deep appreciation for herself and no longer inwardly worries about what people think about her. This gives her a new ability to just be whom she was created to be without needing validation from anyone else. She no longer needs to feel anxious or worried. Her emotional state is calm and steady. She can just breathe. She is now ready to relax and set her gaze outward and upward. Sapphires. A sapphire is a stone of wisdom, royalty, and divine favor. It is associated with all things sacred and is often called the gem of gems. It is the hardest gemstone, second only to the diamond. The blue color of the sapphire signifies hope and faith. It is a symbol of power, strength, kindness, and wise judgment. The blue stone is said to bring healing to the mind, mental tenacity, and focus, as well as promoting self-understanding. A woman who wears her crown is well aware that she is being summoned to soar with her newly formed wings. Just like the sapphire, she applies mental tenacity and focus, whether it's in taking her business to the next level, healing her relationships, or seeing her body restored to health. Her goals are now in alignment with who she is at her core. She is well aware of her why. Through thought-provoking conversation and deep contemplation, she clearly addresses what's going on, what is wanted, and what's in the way. She is ready for strategic action to bridge the gap between who she is now and where she wants to go with wisdom, royalty, and divine favor. According to Town and Country magazine, any woman can wear a tiara or a crown, but ancient tradition has it that they must be a bride or already married. The tiara has its roots in a classical antiquity and was seen as an emblem of the loss of innocence to the crowning of love. When you step into the debut stage of your life, your crown becomes a declaration of your new supremacy over your thoughts, patterns, and beliefs that once kept you small and insignificant. You are no longer innocently unaware into the emotional traps that once ensnared you. The crown gives you access to places you've never been before. Not only does training for reigning take practice, but it also involves risk. You have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. You have to risk venturing into places that you've never gone before. Coming from the cocoon, tight places with limited mobility may be restrictive, but also become comfortable. The crown gives you access to roam the halls of a more expansive dwelling, the castle. Living in a more spacious place with freedom of movement invites you to exploration with curiosity. The season provides an opportunity for you to move about your life with a new sense of flow. Studies have proven that people who previously had very little money and suddenly win the lottery or gain some other form of immediate wealth rapidly lose it by squandering it. I believe this is because they did not take the time to go through the full process of development and transformation. It gives credence to the importance of enduring the cave, the becoming, and the debut as you prepare for the rise. Let's pick back up with our story of Esther. After going through the full process of preparation and transformation, she was ready for her debut in front of the king. Esther chapter 2, verse 17. Now the king loved Esther more than all the other women. She found favor and kindness with him more than all the other virgins, so that he set her a royal crown on her head and made her the queen in the place of Vashti. Then the king held a banquet, Esther's banquet, for all the officials and his servants, and he made a festival for the provinces and gave gifts in accordance with the resources of the king. Esther had been chosen as the new queen, and her head dressed ornately with a crown. Up until this time, Esther had hidden her true identity as a Jew. Just as the cocoon becomes transparent right before the butterfly breaks out of the cocoon and reveals her wings to the world, Queen Esther was about to be given an opportunity to come out of hiding, divulge her true identity, and use her voice to save her people from utterly being destroyed. Once you've gone through the full process of development and you have discovered who you are, why you're here, and what you're here to do, there will be an opportunity for you to be vulnerable. Transparency is an opportunity for you to take off the masks that have hidden your authenticity. It's your moment to show up in the world with true freedom. The villain in Esther's story is a power-hungry man named Haman. Haman had convinced the king to sign a proclamation for all the Jews to be annihilated. Queen Esther's uncle, Mordecai, learned of Haman's plot to have the Jews killed. He sent word to Queen Esther through her attendants about evil Haman's plans. Since the king was not aware of her Jewish heritage, the proclamation was a kiss of death for the queen as well as her entire people group. When you hide your true identity, the impact far outweighs your own life. It's imperative, even if it's a matter of life and death, once you have developed in your truest identity, to disclose who you really are to the world. Queen Esther discussed the matter with her maids and eunuchs and sent word back to Mordecai. Esther chapter 4, verses 12 through 14. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, she sent back an answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come into your royal position for such a time as this. Then Esther sent reply to Mordecai. Go gather all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days and nights. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go before the king, even if it goes against the law. If I perish, I perish. Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. It was customary for Esther to wait to be called upon by the king. To approach him unannounced could cost her life, but that did not stop her. She did not wait and she did not hesitate. During the season of the debut, the crown demands action, but not just any action, strategic action. Instead of running out and blurting out her demands, Queen Esther took deliberate action. She went to the king, and when the king saw her, he was pleased and extended his golden scepter to her. Esther requested the king's presence along with Haman at the banquet. The king offered her up to half his kingdom, but instead she tactically invited them back the next day for another banquet. Her timing was impeccable. Meantime, Haman saw Mordecai on the way home from the banquet. Remembering how much he hated Mordecai, he had gallows built for him to hang. When the king can't sleep, consider the faithfulness of Mordecai, Queen Esther's uncle, who was instrumental in her rise. The story reminds me that the seeds that you sow will grow up and reap a harvest, even if we do not see the fruit of our labor right away. Prior to Esther's rise into the kingdom, Mordecai had been responsible for stopping the plot to assassinate the king, but he had never been rewarded for his good deeds. One night, the king could not sleep, and he asked for the book of the Annals of the Kings. Just something simple, nighttime, just some simple nighttime reading. He just happened to open to the book to the story of Mordecai's intervention of the scoundrels who had plotted to kill the king. This was divine synchronicity at work. Esther chapter 6, verse 3. What honor and recognition had Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, Who's in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on a pole and have it set up for him. His attendants answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked, What should be done for the man who the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought to himself, Who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, For the man that the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe of the king that the king has worn, and a horse that the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and the horse be entrusted to the one that the king honors. Let them robe the man with the king let them robe the man the king delights to honor and lead him on a horse through the city streets, proclaiming him, This is what is done for the man who the king delights to honor. Go at once, the king commanded Haman, get the robe and the horse and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything that you have recommended. Haman, thinking that the king wanted to honor him, painting a picture of royal display for the king. He was now forced to honor the man that he had set out to destroy. Talk about recompense and reward. I can just see the dismay on Haman's face when he was commanded to honor the man that he loathed and had plotted to kill. Haman's evil plot is discovered. The king and Haman attended yet another banquet provided by the king, by the queen. The king was so impressed that he offered her anything she wanted in the kingdom, up to half the kingdom. Verse 3. Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. And if I had merely been sold as a male female slave, I would have kept quiet. But no such distress would justify disturbing the king. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is he? Where is the man that dared to do such a thing?" Esther said, "An adversary and an enemy, this vile Haman." And then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. The king got up in rage, left his wine, and went out of the palace to the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned to the palace garden, to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Will he even molest the queen while she is in my house?" The king was outraged and ordered Haman to be impaled. He was impaled on the very gallows that he had built for Mordecai. As a woman on her journey toward the rise, trust that as you bravely walk in your newly appointed position, whatever comes against you will not succeed. Like Esther, you have come into the kingdom for such a time as this. You have a purpose to fulfill. The season of the debut and accepting your crown aligns with your calling. No matter what problems arise, strategic action and divine synchronicity become your new modus operandi. You are learning to think and act like a queen.